What's going on, folks? Patriots, welcome back. There's times I've made videos where I've talked about the Second Amendment and things like that, and the importance of having the Second Amendment. But it's obvious to me that a lot of people don't understand what the Second Amendment is for and why. So, here we go. All right, 1791. James Madison put in the Second Amendment, had it ratified in the Constitution. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is a unique way of writing, saying that the people as a whole have the right to keep and bear arms. I mean, they understood that in order to be free, the populace has to be armed. Okay? They never meant for a government to come in and regulate your firearms or anything to do with firearms. They didn't regulate firearms then, so they shouldn't be doing it today. Justice Thomas wrote his piece in the Bruin decision, making it to where if they're going to make any kind of gun regulation, it has to be able to withstand the text of the Second Amendment and history and tradition of the country. You know, did they do that back then? Excuse me, I'm driving on the bumpy road. But a lot of people are treating all American citizens, especially politicians, as if they're the rulers, and if they don't trust you with something, they don't allow you to have it. Okay, that's where I got a problem. The government is not there to tell me what I cannot do. The government is not there to babysit me and rule over me as a ruler. You know, which is why they're having a hard time, because the Constitution stands in their way. And they understand that as long as the Constitution stands, and we have constitutional scholars out here and defenders, they can try and chip away at it little by little until they get what they want. And then when they get what they want, they're going to unleash fury all over you. That means if you don't like something, tough, you're going to have to deal with it. You want to protest something, they'll get rid of you. You know, the Constitution, the reason why the government hates it so much is it tells them what they cannot do. It limits them and keeps the power with the people. The Second Amendment right is very, very important. It is the one right that pretty much secures all others. You know, all law-abiding citizens. Now, this is the part I hate. Calling everybody law-abiding. Okay? We know how to live with each other. Us law-abiding, as you call it. But when I hear the term law-abiding, it makes me think of sheep. It makes me think these followers need to do as they're told. We use law to rule them. If we don't like something and we can get everybody else on board, we can rule over the rest and tell them what and how to live. So I don't like the term law-abiding, okay? Because what does that even mean anyway? It means you follow the laws. They call you law-abiding so that they can make laws so that you, in turn, in your brain, goes, well, I've got to follow this law if I want my rights. Your rights are already guaranteed to you, no matter what law is on the books. Laws don't give you rights. God gives you your inalienable rights to defend yourself, to free speech, to be who you are, to worship as you wish, because God gave you free will and let you go. You make your own decision. And there is evil in this world, yes. This is why law enforcement carries firearms, because there's evil in this world. They make gun laws that don't affect law enforcement. Why is that? There's a lot of law-abiding citizens I know out there that are just as trustworthy as law enforcement. But I hate to tell you, but law enforcement is human too. And there's evil in there too. Oh, a law enforcement officer, he can walk on school grounds with a sidearm. He can come unhinged just like anybody else. Just because he has a badge and a peace officer's license doesn't mean that he can't be evil. Doesn't mean that he can't do harm with bad intentions. Okay? Which is why our founding fathers put in the Second Amendment for everybody. They knew if someone was going to step out of place, it would be squashed right then and there. Now, mind you, I do respect law enforcement. Don't get me wrong. And I will allow them to do their job. But remember, when it comes to evil, law enforcement, all they can do is clean up the mess after the fact. They don't have a minority report. They don't have a crystal ball or a future, somebody can see the future. So I don't understand why I would say call them first. Yeah, you call them first if you can, if time allows. 9 times out of 10, that's not the question. 9 times out of 10, we're the ones, the citizens, who confront evil first. But you got politicians, no, you can't have that. That's banned. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to do that. And that cost citizens their lives. That was never meant to be ever instilled, ever. To tell Americans what they can and cannot use to defend themselves. That's why the Second Amendment states the right of the people to keep and bear arms. Any arm, by definition, is an item that can be used offensively or defensively to save your life, to protect yourself. That's an arm. It does not state firearms. It does not state knives. It does not state anything else. That's like, you take a baseball bat to a guy and he dies and they decide to charge you with murder. They're going to say you were armed with a baseball bat. That was the weapon used. You understand? A knife. He was armed with a knife. And he used that weapon to kill this person. A tricycle. He used that weapon, tricycle, as a weapon to defend his family and his property. It was the only thing he could use to arm himself with. Do you understand what I'm saying? Arms isn't vague. It's anything you can pick up with your hands and use it for self-defense, period. So, they come up with terms, assault rifle, a verb and a noun. Doesn't make sense. An AR-15 is not an assault rifle. It is a sporting rifle used for sport, hunting, target shooting, self-defense, period. These idiots are afraid of that rifle, that weapon. Why? I know some pretty bad dudes out there that are pretty proficient with anything and can wipe out a lot of people with just about anything they put their hands on. A car. I've seen where cars taking out 80 people. And that's over in England. They thought, well, we're going to get rid of the guns. Okay. So this is what we hear. We're going to get rid of these firearms, and you can deal with evil in another way. I can't leave myself that way. I want the best tool to give myself the best chance to survive evil. You can't legislate evil away. You can't vote it away. You can't wish it away. And just like that colonel said, I can't remember his name, forgive me, but I remember his quote. The only one who can instill fear in the criminal is the intended victim. They don't fear law enforcement. They don't fear jail. They don't fear courts. But they do fear an armed potential victim. And that's the only one who can instill that fear. But dumbass bureaucrats in Washington, D.C. look at you as a child, as an idiot, as a buffoon, and say they don't need these weapons. These assholes don't know what we need. It's none of their business. We know what we need at the time, and we will use the best weapon possible to protect ourselves. They can't protect us. They don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. But one thing I do know, and I'm pretty sure they know too, is evil is here. And the more you restrict law-abiding citizens, the more you empower evil. Law-abiding, remember, sheep. Make sure you do as you're told so that you can have your rights. Make sure you do things our way, follow our laws so you can have your rights. Frankly, God's 10 Commandments is the only laws we need. Man doesn't know any better. All they know how to do is be greedy and try to control. That's it. And, suppressors. Let's take that for example. What's the big deal? They help protect hearing. They don't silence a gun completely. So what's your problem with it? It doesn't make the bullet faster. They're trying to control you through your constitutional rights. And it's time for everybody to stand against Washington, D.C. with everything you've got and show them once and for all that interfering or infringing on my rights would be the worst decision you ever make in your life. But nobody's telling them that. But you hear politicians, this is what politicians say. Political violence is never the answer. We cannot have political violence. We can't do it. Of course not. Because it would be them on the receiving end. So they say that so they can say, we'll rule you, but political, there's no place for political violence. They're trying to protect themselves from violence so they can infringe and step on your constitutional rights, your human rights, and trying to tell you there's no place in our country for political violence. But I beg to differ, and let me tell you why. When tyranny rears its ugly little head, 9 times out of 10, violence is all you got. It's all they'll understand. We don't want to be violent. Nobody does that I know of. We want to live peacefully. We want to be left alone. We put representatives in a position, senators in a position to represent us, to make sure our will is done the way the way we want our life to be. They get elected in there, and they go into Washington D.C., and then they congregate together, and the first thing that comes to mind is, how can we rule these people? We've got the power. We can make these laws. We can do this. And if they don't follow, we'll threaten them with prison. Let me explain something to you, all of you in Washington, D.C., and listen very closely. There are more of us than there are of you. You need to tread lightly, because the more and more I see tyranny and I see restriction come from you, the only thing that comes to my mind is, I'm glad I'm not in Washington, D.C. These guys are asking for it. They are poking the bear, and the bear's going to strike. And I hate to be there when it does. And you try to stand behind law to do it. I don't think so. A law that conflicts with the Constitution is no good. And by our duty, we do not have to follow that law. But here's the sad thing. For people to actually stand and say, no, we can't follow that law. That's against our constitutional rights. They have to fight it in court. It takes a long time. No, we need an expedited situation. We need a way to expedite our constitutional rights and make sure that they're protected at all times. So, I tell everybody, every American, if they come to you and infringing on your rights, call everybody you know. And when you call them, they call everybody that they know. And we have a show of force. We're going to have to stand up for each other like they do, or we're going to get mowed over. Be peaceful, of course. Be peaceful. But a show of force shows that we mean business. We do it right. We do it lawfully. And our rights will be secured. Because they'll understand, man, you mess with their rights, man, you're gonna have hell to pay. And they'll want to avoid it at all costs. Which is why they're trying to use these terms of being law-abiding, and there's no place for political violence in our country. Of course they're going to say that. They don't want retribution against them. They don't want justice against them when they infringe on your rights. And they use the courts like Supreme Court. Well, I'm just going to put this judge in here. I'm a president. I'm going to put this judge in here. This justice will see things my way. Instead of seeing things the constitutional way for the American people, they want to please the one who put them there. That's the problem with having humans, people, rule over people. And I say rule, like, not lightly. I know that's what they're doing. Well, American people don't like this. We'll take it to the Supreme Court and see who wins. No, I just pull out my Constitution and it tells me who wins. We win. You may not like us armed to the teeth, but frankly, I don't give a damn. And they said it once, and we'll say it every day. Come and take it. And when you do, we'll happily meet you on the battleground. Now, like I said, this is our country, this is our home, this is our way of life. Be armed at all times. Evil is around every corner. We just don't know which corner it wants to jump out at the time. And you may find yourself at that corner. And you need to be ready. Why? Because evil is always going to make sure it's ready when it pounces. You need to be ready in return to defend yourself. Even evil is in Washington, D.C. They can show up as ATF, FBI at your door. Look at Ruby Ridge. Man did nothing wrong. Lost a son, wife, and all that. For what? Because they want control. Own any firearm you want and deal with anyone that wants to take it away. Our founding fathers ensured that we had that duty to be put in place when tyranny comes knocking at our door. And we need to stand up for each other. Stop watching it on TV and going, oh man, poor guy. I hope that doesn't happen to me. These other people out here in the streets that don't like what the government's doing, they're showing up. They're doing it in a stupid way, but you got to give them credit. They're showing up. They're arriving in person by the numbers. They're doing it wrong, but still they're showing up nonetheless. So all you gun owners from sea to shining sea, where the hell are you at? If you want to continue your way of life, you need to show up. That's all I got to say. Well, remember, the Second Amendment is there for you, to protect you, your family, community. Stop electing people that just want to come in and rule you. Put people in office that want to protect your rights. Put people in office that are going to represent you the right way, the American way. And get these idiots out that don't belong there. Jasmine Crockett, Ilhan Omar. Those two should never come nowhere near Washington, D.C. Jamie Raskin, another traitor. Jerry Nadler. The list just goes on and on and on. Cory Booker, you name it. If they want to live this lifestyle, why don't they go to China? There you go. No guns. You're good. Go do that. But leave us alone. Anyway, I was trying not to make this video long, but sometimes it gets away from you. I love each and every one of you. If you haven't given your life to Christ, give him to Christ. And those of you who cringe at the name of Christ, you better find yourself. You better find yourself before it's too late. It'll be a sad day for you if you don't. God has given you free will to do as you please. And he's only put certain rules out for you to follow. And really, they're not. They're reasonable. They're not unreasonable. You give your life to God and Christ, your life changes for the better. But it's going to have to take you jumping in with both feet to find out. Don't take my word for it. I've already witnessed it. Christ has my heart, my loyalty. I hope he has yours too. Till we meet again, peace.